Please take your seats. Let me extend a warm welcome to all the folks who's come out for the Sarasota Memorial Healthcare System board meeting. If I can just take a quick liberty and introduce the members of the board here at the table. Sarah Lodge represents the Central District. Sharon Wessler de Peters represents at large. Rick Reiner is also at large. Ray Baker represents the Northern District. I'm Trent Hudson, I'm at large. Greg Carter represents the the Southern District. And Victor Roby represents the Northern District. We have two board members that are not with us. Patricia Mariah has an excused absence. She's still dealing with the loss of her mother. And Bridget Federici is not able to be with us today. Patricia represents the Southern District, and Bridget represents the Central District. We also have the CEO of the hospital, David Berender. Caroline Kalish is the Chief Legal Officer, and Karen Marshall is the Secretary to the board. Let me just read an opening comment that we have to do every month. I think you're probably getting used to it. Any citizen desiring to address the hospital board should turn in a speaker card to the board secretary. Comments will be heard in the public comment section of the agenda. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. The chair may find it necessary to limit the time comments in the interest of time. Vendors, suppliers, or other persons seeking hospital contracts awarded on a competitive basis are reminded that their ability to address the board may be restricted by the terms of the invitation from bid, request for proposal, or other purchasing criteria. Lastly, the board has established a claims adjustment review panel comprised of representatives of the board, the medical staff, administration, and legal counsel to review and negotiate the settlement of claims. Accordingly, the board will not entertain comments or discuss or negotiate claims at this meeting. So, with that, let me call the meeting to order. We'll begin. First order of business is the approval of the orders of the day. Is there a motion to approve the orders of the day? I have a motion by Mr. Carter, second by Mr. Baker. Discussion, hear none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June the 19th. I think that was on the governance. You first suggested that. This is on the minutes of our board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the slides with Mr. Baker seconding that? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
And motion carries. Next item are board reports, and there are no board reports today. And I'd like to turn the floor over to our CEO, David Berender, to present the Excel Award winner for the month of May.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. I am pleased to introduce you to our Excel recipient for the month of May, Paul Ravlutsky. Paul, come on up. So, Paul, I'm going to say a couple nice things about you, okay? These are actually things your colleagues said about you, so even better. So Paul has been on our team since 1992. He's been known throughout the organization for his wealth of knowledge and outstanding work ethic. Staff frequently see his help with highly technical assistance, particularly the specialization of equipment in our CAT lab and EP labs. Paul consistently excels at his job performance and adheres to the highest standards. Whenever a system's down, he prioritizes the call, stays in communication, and resolves the issue promptly. Colleagues say that he takes great pride in the equipment he services, knowing that the device will have an impact on a patient's life. He also remains positive and professional at all times, even during high-stress situations. Team members repeatedly state that Paul is the best and we're lucky to have him. Paul, on behalf of our community, our healthcare system, and everybody you touch every day, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. A plaque I'd like to read this very quickly. And we did recognize Paul at a governance committee, management council meeting last month, last week, a couple weeks ago. So we got to embarrass him in front of about 150, 200 people, and right? So anyway, Excel Award. The Excel recipients are employees who are models of excellence and consistently demonstrate the mission, vision, and values of our organization. They are superior performers who make an extra effort in the quality and care of our patients and families and the community. The hospital board and administrative staff of the Sarasota Memorial Healthcare System recognizes you, Paul, with the Excel Award for the month of May 2023. And it's signed by both myself as President CEO, Mr. Hudson, as Chair of the Board. So once again, congratulations. You get a Open mic, nice.
I just want to say thanks to everybody who nominated me. It means a lot. I would not be here though if I didn't have the staff that I work with. I have an amazing director, amazing manager. My coworkers are just amazing. We have a great team. And, that's about it.
Well, that's a lot. That's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would just say that Paul not only gets a nice plaque, he also gets a reserved parking space in the parking deck for his month of.
I've been using it too.
So you like that parking space?
Yes.
All right. Particularly during the season.
Yeah.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Next order of business, if I could correct, did not introduce the other members up here on the dais. I want to introduce Dr. Jim Fiorito, who's the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jonathan Hoffberger, who is the Chief of Staff of the hospital here, and also you can't see on video, we have Dr. Chris Jefferson, who's the Chief of Staff at our hospital in Venice. And yeah, I apologize for not introducing y'all earlier. So now you have to give a speech. We're going to turn the floor over under medical staff report. Dr. Fiorito, you're first.
So I'd like to ask for a motion for approving the Sarasota Memorial Healthcare System ordering a tissue donor policy procedure as recommended by the SMH Sarasota and SMH Venice medical staff and our medical executive committee.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Reiner, seconded by Mr. Carter. Is there any discussion? If I can just comment again for the audience who are watching this, a lot of our work is done in the committees. The committees are open with the exception of our quality committee, but you may not hear any discussion at this time. This has been well vetted. So, hearing no discussion on board members, ready for a vote? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Dr. Hoffler, you have the floor.
I would ask for a motion approving Sarasota Memorial Sarasota delineation of privileges as amended to remove some criteria related to neonatology or privileges to align them with best practices to reflect neonatologist advanced training as recommended by the SMH Sarasota Medical Executive Committee.
So moved.
And a second. Ms. Love seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ready for a vote? All those in favor say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Dr. Jefferson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask for a motion approving Sarasota Memorial Hospital Venice delineation of privileges as amended to add certain oculofacial procedures with qualification criteria and to remove some criteria related to neonatology core privileges to align them with best practices to reflect Neonatologist Advanced Training as recommended by the SMH Venice Medical Executive Committee.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Reiner.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Baker. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item is the Secretary's report. I'm going to ask Ms. Lodge, in a second, the Assistant Secretary, to give the Secretary report.
Thank you. Our next meeting will be Monday, August 21st. From 9 to 10:30, we will have Mission and Planning Committee. From 10:30 to noon, we will have Finance Committee. From noon to 12:30, we will have the closed session hospital board meeting. From 12:30 to 2, financial review and board issues and board lunch. And then from 2 to 4, the board meeting. Following that, we on Tuesday, September 5th, 2023, we will at 5:01 p.m. we will have the preliminary budget and tax millage hearing.
Any questions from Ms. Lodge? Thank you for your report. Next item is the Treasurer's report, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval of bad debts and charity care for the month ended June 30th, 2023, in the amount of $19,774,000.
Yeah, I've heard the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, and motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Our next item, financial highlights, Jeff Lindbacher, our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. This will be financial highlights through June of 2023, so that is the ending of the third quarter of this fiscal year. One more quarter to go. First slide is total revenue for the system, month and year to date. So the numbers on the screen are in thousands. The actual for the month of June was $144,679,000. That's the blue bar to the left versus a budget of $119,910,000. On the right, year to date, right at 1.3 billion year to date versus a budget of 1.129 billion year to date. Next page would be total expenses. Again, for the system, the bar chart on the left is for the month of June. The actual is $138,457,000 versus a budget of $114,842,000. On a year-to-date basis, the bar chart is back to the right, $1.234 billion year-to-date expenses versus a budget of 1.07069 budget year-to-date. The resulting operating income for the month of June, the blue bar to the left, $6,222,000 versus a budget of $5,068,000. That's an operating margin actual of 4.3% versus a budget operating margin of 4.2%. On a year-to-date basis, operating income $73,696,000 versus a budget of $59,878,000. On a percentage basis, the actual is 5.7% versus a budget of 5.3%. Moving into the statistics, these are all year-to-date numbers. So June fiscal year-to-date for the hospitals only. Our average daily occupancy, the bar chart to the left, 873 versus a budget of 744. If you look at the smaller boxes on the left-hand bottom left corner, for Sarasota, that was an acute length of stay, Sarasota campus of 4.73. And for Venice, that acute length of stay was 3.88. Admissions and observation cases, we had 55,025 for the year versus a budget of 47,259 for the year. Moving to the next slide, surgery cases year to date, 23,670 versus a budget of 21,013 cases. Moving to the right, our total births, 3,329 versus a budget of 3,387. Moving to the outpatient side of the hospitals, our total registrations year to date, 438,897 versus a budget of 416,469. And then our emergency care registrations, 132,359 year to date versus 111,023 for the budget. And then finally, the case mix index, moving fiscal year to date 23, showing all the way to the right, those 4 bars. Our case mix index all for Sarasota campus was 1.83 versus a Medicare only case mix index of 1.89. For Venice, our all patient case mix index of 1.56 versus Medicare only at 1.60 year to date. That concludes my.
Any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff, for your report. Next item on the agenda is the committee reports. The first one is Governance Effectiveness Committee, which I chair. We had 7 board members present this morning. We started at 8 o'clock, and we covered several different topics. The first topic that we discussed was an idea to change the calendar of our meetings so that we can be more effective and more efficient in the operation of the board committee process. After significant discussion, the board determined that they will continue to have our 12-time per year meeting schedule, but hold committee meetings only 6 times per year, ensuring that there is sufficient time dedicated to each committee meeting to do the business of the board and engage in educational opportunities. The board will have monthly meetings to cover medical staff and quality issues, and full agenda meetings 6 times a year to cover all the business of the committees. So I would ask for such a motion. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say yes. Roll call vote. Yes, we can have a roll call vote. I'll start with Ms. Lodge.
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Reiner.
Yes, but may I, you called for discussion, then you called for a roll call vote. May I add a comment to my yes? I say yes as the board member who was very hesitant to make any change to the board schedule, understanding it is extremely important that we remain responsive to the needs of the community as well as to the needs of the hospital staff. I believe we are trying something new in an effort to respond and find a balance for all. So I vote yes, but if we find that it is not working well, I would like to consider returning to what we had known before.
Sure, absolutely. So we're recording those.
I'm a yes.
Yes. Yes. And the chair votes yes. Motion carries. I would say that, obviously this year has been different than any year. I think I've been involved with the school board. I'm sure Mr. Carter would say the same thing. He was 20 years on the board. It's not an attempt to stifle public input. It's, I think, an effort to allow a greater amount of time for the board to discuss issues, challenges that are before the system, and also to hear from the public. And as I wrote in an editorial back in December, I am fully committed to hearing everyone's viewpoints. And as long as I'm chairman, we welcome the public input and our needs. Brett, your point is well taken. If we fail in that, I'm sure we'll have questions. Any other comments on it?
Just that I think the board did a good job today of finding a middle ground, that originally it was proposed to meet quarterly, and we instead moved it back to the proposed schedule that you just enumerated. So thank you for that collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. The second item that we discussed at the governance meeting, we had a robust discussion about whether or not the board should have independent legal counsel as an elected body. A lot of different views were expressed, and finally the committee voted on as there were 7 members there, was 5 to vote recommending the motion that I'll put forward right now. The committee recommends moving approval of the addition of a provision to the board's bylaws codifying the dual reporting of the board's general counsel as recommended by the Governance Effectiveness Committee. Is there a second?
Second, also, roll call vote.
I'm sorry, Victor was saying that he seconded the motion and requested a roll call. Okay. Is there any discussion before we have? There none, are we prepared to vote? Let's start with Ms. Lodge.
Yes.
Ms. Lodge, yes. Ms. Peters is yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So you back there, Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. Rohit,
Yes, and reserve the right to reconsider.
and chair votes no. Motion passes with a reconsideration to be brought up at a later time. Is there any other discussion? The third point, the governance committee reviewed and postponed for a later date was succession planning. And Ms. Ryan made a major point that we need to spend more time on that. And we frankly ran out of time this morning, and that will be done at a later date as well. That concludes my report from the governance committee. Next item of business is the committee report, joint finance audit committee, Ms. Lodge.
Thank you. This morning, we did a joint finance and audit committees. The minutes of the May 15th, 2023 meeting of the Finance Committee were approved. Next on the agenda was Todd Webster from KPMG, who presented their audit plan and strategy for the external audit of the fiscal year 2023 financial statements of the Sarasota County Public Hospital Board. They reviewed their risk assessment, plan deliverables, and timeline, and their independence. No motion was necessary. This was for informational purposes only. Next on the agenda was Jeff Limbacher, our CFO, who presented information for the committee to consider for setting the preliminary tax millage rate for fiscal year 2024. He outlined the system's growth plans for fiscal year 2024 and beyond, and he also reviewed the cost pressures that are impacting the system and preparing the budget for fiscal year 2024. The taxable value of the property in Sarasota County, including the value of the new construction, has increased over 14.5% over the past year. Management's recommendation is to set the fiscal year 2024 millage rate at 1.0420, which is the same as the current millage rate. The committee discussed this information provided, and at this time, I move to set the fiscal year 2024 preliminary millage rate at 1.0420, which is the same as the current millage rate, and to set the first public hearing to adopt the proposed budget and millage rate for the September 5th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. And the second public hearing to adopt the budget and the millage rate for September 19th, 2023 at 5:01 p.m. Both hearings are currently scheduled to be in the old boardroom and the auditorium on the first floor of the Sarasota Memorial Hospital Sarasota campus located at 1700 South Tamiami Trail, as all recommended by the Finance Committee.
And Mr. Baker, seconds to your motion. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, you're prepared to vote. All those in favor of the motion, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, motion carries.
Great. Next on the agenda was Jeff again, our CFO, who recommended approval of the engagement letter with Walters and Associates to perform the fiscal year 23 pension financial statement audit. I move approval of the engagement letter with Walters and Associates to perform the fiscal year 2023 pension financial statement audit as recommended by the audit committee.
Motion second, Brian.
Motion.
Ms. Ryder. That was a second, right?
Yes.
Second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Todd Ness, next, he's our Director of Audit Services, then provided an update on the following internal audit projects. Fiscal year 2023 audit plan status, charge capture process, travel, nursing, expense controls, third-party lab service billing, and invoice purchases orders. All findings discussed were considered to be low risk, and management has initiated corrective action plans for all findings. There was no motion necessary. This is for informational purposes only. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Next item is the quality committee, Ms. Ryder.
Well, the board quality committee meets in closed session, so we do not usually have a full report at the board meeting. Today, we discussed one of the elements of the board's COVID report and review, which we have previously reported on. So I wanted to give an update on the Health Emergency Response Committee, or HERC, which was created in response to communication challenges identified in the COVID response report. The HERC is designed to ensure that all stakeholders, patients, family, staff, and the community have clear pathways to both provide and receive information as it develops for any future health emergency. The Quality Committee reviewed and discussed the comprehensive committee plan, which includes the circumstances under which the HERC will be implemented, the multidisciplinary nature of the committee, the role of the committee as an information clearinghouse, and its responsibility for closing the loop on concerns and requests that are sent its way, and the importance of the committee's reporting pathway to the board on a regular, timely, and consistent fashion. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Ryder? Moving on, next report is the president's report. David, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And start like I do with each meeting with our organizational report card. And we're looking at you should see it on the screen behind me. The 5 different areas that we take a look at each month, and that's service, people, quality, finance, and growth. The first area is out of service. We have a goal of having 8 out of our 10 of our areas that we survey be at or equal to or greater than the 75th percentile. Happy to report to the board that we are 10 out of 10, and I'll share the details on that in a minute. In the area of people, we have a goal of having 83% of the people that were hired during the FY 2023 and are still employed by September 30th, 2023, be at 83% or higher. Happy to report we're exceeding that as well at 88.36%. In the area of quality, we have our goal of being less than 0.8 combined overall standardized infection rate. And we are happy to report that we are lower than that at 0.62. Just to remind the board members that a 1.0 would be an expected rate for a national average, so considerably lower than that already. In the area of finance, we have a goal of having and you've heard this report already from our CFO, Jeff Limbacher, but we have a goal of having our operating margin be at 5%. We are currently tracking it at just over that 5.3%. And then finally, in the growth area of concentration, we have 2 goals. First being our inpatient admissions and outpatient observations. being at 61,500 or higher. We are tracking higher now at 72,133 patients. And in the outpatient registrations, we have a goal of being 1.31 million patients for the year, and we are tracking higher than that as well, 1.394 million. So going to the next page, we're looking at our the detailed patient experience report card. Just to orient the map here, on the left-hand side, you have the 10 different areas that we surveyed for likelihood of recommending. In the middle column is what our actual survey score is. The next over is the national median score, and then finally to the far right is the 75th percentile score. As I've said, our team has worked very hard, and we are getting 10 out of 10 leaves. So congratulations to all of our staff. During the last month, we had a chance to break ground on a new research and education facility on the Sarasota campus. Designed to promote collaboration, discovery, and innovation in medical education and research, the 5-story facility will house SMH's expanding clinical research division, clinical and graduate medical education programs, a medical library, and a new state-of-the-art simulation center designed for patient-safe, hands-on training. The Institute will also free up space inside the hospital for bedside care. Project is scheduled for completion in late 2025. And want to thank all of our board members who took their time to come and do that. We very much appreciate it. SMH is also recognized for maternity and newborn care. We recently received 2 major recognitions for maternity care, earning a level 3 maternal care verification from the Joint Commission and renewing baby-friendly hospital designation from Baby Friendly USA. The Joint Commission, in collaboration with the American College of Obstetrics, or ACOG, assesses and verifies hospitals' maternal levels of care through a voluntary survey that we do every 3 years. Sarasota Memorial received a level 3 verification for providing enhanced care for low and moderate risk pregnancies as well as high risk patients. Following a comprehensive on-site assessment, SMH Sarasota also received a redesignation as a baby-friendly hospital. The international recognition spotlights the hospitals that create a care environment and culture that supports mother-baby bonding, breastfeeding, and better practices in maternity care. SMH Sarasota was the first and remains the only hospital on the Sea Coast to earn baby-friendly hospital designation in 2017 and was successfully redesignated for another 5 years. SMH named a mitral valve repair reference center. Sarasota Memorial Hospital, Sarasota, has received the Mitral Valve Repair Reference Center Award for the 3rd time from the American Heart Association and Mitral Foundation, and for demonstrated record of superior clinical outcomes for mitral valve repair. Repair is often the preferred treatment for patients with degenerative mitral valve disease because it is associated with improved survival and fewer long-term complications versus valve replacement. The Mitral Valve Repair Reference Center Award was created to provide patients and referring physicians with the resources needed to make a well-informed choice regarding the best heart team for mitral valve repair surgery. And Sarasota Memorial has earned the award 3 consecutive years. And I mean, I'd be remiss to not thank Dr. Hopper, who leads that and happens to be our chief of staff right now. So thank you, Dr. Hopper. Physicians lectures continue on our campus. I know there's way too many of them and too small for you to see, but I would invite you to go to our website and take a look at these. These are free lectures, and we offer, on top of that, free valet parking. So hope to see you there if you're able to. We have a new HealthCast episode that focuses on neuro rehab on our podcast. Neuro rehabilitation helps patients who have suffered a stroke or other neurological injury. Sarasota Memorial's latest video podcast features first physician group physiatrist Dr. Ryan Hafner, who specializes in I can't say it, management. So sorry. He explains how seeking neuro rehab early can help patients get back to their lives. Check out the interviews and all the other topics we have on our podcast. Mr. Chair, that's my report.
Any questions for David? We'll move on. The consent agenda, there were no items on the consent agenda. Number 13, legal matters. Number 4, now it's time for public comments. I have some good news to report to everyone, is that the new sound system for this room will be installed August the 1st. So in future meetings, we're probably having this room 2 years before our new building is completed. We'll have a new sound system, so make it easier for the citizens to speak as well as the board members to speak. So as in the past, in making public comments, you need to have filled out a yellow speaker's card. And if I can just go over rules for speakers. Before beginning comments, speakers must identify themselves by stating their full name and whether or not they live in Sarasota County before beginning their comments. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes to allow for maximum participation. Speakers should mind the timer that will be visible behind me in the auditorium. The chair may announce when the speaker has 1 minute remaining, but I'm planning on to check the screen line. Please be respectful of other speakers. I'm hearing the time. Other guidelines, only those who have submitted a speaker's card will be allowed to speak. Comments during the public comment section shall be related to hospital issues only. Personal attacks, abusive language, profanity, comparisons to the Holocaust will not be tolerated. No person attending the board meeting is to harass, annoy, otherwise disturb any other person in the room. Clapping, whistling, heckling, gesturing, loud conversations, other disruptive behavior is prohibited. All electronic devices, including cell phones, pagers, be either turned off or otherwise silenced. I was so glad I did that today. While participants may leave and re-enter the room, if necessary, we cannot guarantee that your order of presentation will be accommodated. Your name will go to the bottom of the list. I hope that is helpful. You all have been very respectful audience thus far, so I don't think there's an issue. So we have probably, and I take these in the order that given to me. 4, 5, 6. 6 speakers. First is Ms. Barbara Vaughn. Welcome back, Barbara. Followed by Saul Kilstein, and followed by Allison Blanches. So welcome back, Ms. Vaughn.
Mr. Chairman, when I attended your comments earlier to start, I'm working
And you live in
this board. I'm going to do something unusual today that I normally do at school board meetings. But I think you guys need prayer too. So Father God, I come to you on behalf of this hospital, these board members, and all of the medical professionals who follow best practices here in healing, nurturing their patients. We ask you, Lord, to keep in their minds at all times their promise to do no harm, regardless of how they're directed, Lord, from politicians and political entities. Help them, Lord, to have the courage to stand their ground and do what they know is best for their patients. And Lord, speaking of patients, we pray that you will be with all the patients in this facility and the one in Venice. Keep them strong and comforted as they heal, and speak their healing, Lord, we pray. And again, keep the doctors and the other nursing and medical care professionals on their best, Lord. And keep them responsive to their public. People who pay for this facility and the people who make use of this facility. And for all these things, we thank you, Lord. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dawn. Next is Saul Kilstein, or Steen, followed by Allison Langlis, followed by Stephen Morrow.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's all right.
I'm Saul Kilstein. I've been in Sarasota the last 5 years. I'll try not to see my time. Just shut me up. I've been in healthcare policy administration at the federal state level and the pharmaceutical industry for over 4 decades. I've become known to board hearing about bad debt and charity care. For the meetings I've attended, I looked at the financials attached to your agenda. It's $240 million a year. If you look at the average monthly, that's about 18 to 20% of your budget. I've looked at some recent policy changes at the federal level, which beginning April 1st, did what they call their special enrollment period, which allowed Medicaid and CHIP to suspend re-enrollment in Medicaid and CHIP and required enrollees in those programs to reapply for continued eligibility. At the same time, the legislature required hospitals to begin to examine legal status of patients coming into the hospital and emergency rooms. The confluence of those two policies has put administrators in the hospital in a position to, instead of looking for ways to cover patients coming to your facilities, urgent care, emergency rooms, and inpatient, how can you pay for care? You're going through a process of looking at patients who no longer have coverage or who are afraid to come to the hospital. And that really troubles me. So what I'm suggesting is the same enrollment administrative staff that's looking to turn patients away, to look at those personnel and have them instructed on how to get those patients re-enrolled in Medicaid, enrolled in the Obamacare or some form of insurance, and not be a barrier to coverage, but the way in which to get their coverage continued. The other things you can look at are have your medical staff, when people come in with heart conditions, when they come in with cholesterol out of control, when did they go off medication? Why did they go off medication? And is it related to their lack of affordability? Because there are drug programs, whether it's GoodRx or any of these other programs that they might have been able to enroll in, look to be a source of information that these patients can either get coverage or other forms of payment for healthcare. And that's what I hope this system can do. Thank you.
Thank you for your very thoughtful comments. Next is Allison Langis, followed by Stephen Marlowe, followed by Elmer Harris.
Hi, my name is Allison Lanchis. Owned a home in Charlotte County with my parents. My parents were here, more specifically my mother, Leslie, was relevantly to why we're here.
Could you speak in the microphone, please? And just pick it up. There you go.
We wrote a letter to you all, which was actually passed on to us, but I believe it was disseminated to you all. And then we received, that was in May, and then we received a letter back from risk management in June. I believe that was also CC to all of you. I doubt whether you all have that info. I did bring one copy if you wanted. We put together a response to that letter. We considered sending that letter directly to risk management. Given the response we received, given that only half of the issues we asked about were addressed, I brought a response to read to you here. I can read that, or I can give it to you. I'm not sure I can read it in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Well, I'm right, if you have it prepared there, I think if you would give that to us, we will take that under advisement. I think that may be the best way to end.
Okay. Does this become part of public record?
If it deals with patient information, it's not a part of public record. If it's general in nature, it will be a part of public record. Perhaps.
And if that's your concern, don't read it out loud, because if
That's not my concern. What I want also to be part of public record is that there were incidents that should be addressed, and I don't feel that risk management is taking them serious enough regarding anesthesia, regarding adverse events during the anesthesia, regarding sexualized comments being heard by the patient during anesthesia. There's social or mental health services not being offered, which is repeatedly reported at the incidents. If we received a letter back that adequately and addressed all of those issues, I wouldn't be here today. We're not looking to sue anybody, we're not trying to create a huge ruckus. What we're saying is this was not okay. It needs to change, and the letter we received did not come close.
Okay, I think then if you would leave the letter with me, I'll make sure it comes to the board.
Unfortunately, it's not pretty, and I apologize, because I was just gonna read it, so.
That's okay,
Okay.
don't worry about that.
Very much like the difference.
Well, if you'll just pass it, swallow that, it'd be great.
Thank you.
Allison, anything else you'd like to say? Okay. Thank you very much for coming forward. Thank you, parents being here too. Next is Stephen Marlin, to be followed by Tanya Harris, to be followed by, I think mispronounced this, Macias Cherinos.
Hi, my name is Stephen Marlin. I'm an employee at SH. Currently I live in Bradenton, Sarasota. I came before this board in January and March asking why SMH sent out a training assignment entitled LGBTQ+ Inclusion in Healthcare. I sent a follow-up letter in March and again early this month of July. So Chairman Hudson, is it normally how people are treated who are asking relevant and perfectly rational questions? Silence, is that what we get? Especially considering what is happening all around the country with parents trying to protect their children. I don't want to hear that this training was optional. That's really insulting for an employee, we all know. But let's not beat around the bush here. This group of people is advocating chemical and physical castration of children. If your daughter came to you saying they really identify with a person who has no legs, would you even entertain the idea that you would encourage her to damage her legs to accommodate this fantasy? The very idea that we would accept these types of procedures on children is sick. This is sickening behavior. I mean, we condemn ancient societies that sacrifice their children. I mean, what are we doing? What have we become? What is next? But don't take my word for it. If you read my letter, you might remember I quoted a representative of our current White House administration, Rachel Levin, speaking to pediatricians who said, quote, evaluations and treatments of people who are transgender and transgendered youth is thoroughly grounded in medical research, unquote. He went on to say, quote, I can say that you, the children that you serve, the young people that you serve, their families, and you all have the support at the highest levels of the federal government, unquote. These people are not vague about their intent. They are not backing down. They are coming after the children. The only thing stopping it in Florida is our current Republican governor who won decisively in 2020 and Republican legislature in Florida. You all, so-called Republicans on this board, were elected on their coattails. So I hope you are all, paying attention. You also, so I hope you and your elected mothers, I hope you know that the people that elected you, the mothers and fathers, normal people like me in this community, I hope you're paying attention. You best not forget what happened in our local elections in 2020. This is a big deal. We are the majority and we will not forget. So I ask, why is this such a difficult question to answer? I mean, Mr. Barrett, this must have crossed your desk. I can't believe that we're even talking about this. You board members, like me, you should want to know why. Your constituents want to know. After SMH pushed this training and I spoke, I hope you've been paying attention to the news. Did you see what happened with Bud Light and Target? And yes, I still want to answer.
Your time has expired.
I got 2 sentences. The majority of the people in this community that voted for you want an answer. SMH knew exactly what they were doing when they sent this out as an assignment. Who authorized this and why? Seriously, what are you afraid of? Or maybe you should be afraid. Thank you.
Next is Tanya Harris, followed by I'm going to say Vancia Chirinos. And I apologize, Ms. Nana. Welcome back, Ms. Harris.
Good afternoon, board. I'm not tall up here. Tanya Cruz from Sarasota County. I do have a question for the board. How is any amount of silence your constituents possible here? That's my question. I'm unsure approximately how 1 hour, one time a month is just entirely too much to dedicate to your constituents and the taxpayers of this hospital. I'm aware that the board discussed silencing us to once every quarter, and there was a settlement of just silencing us to once every other month. And I wish I could say thank you for that, but to be honest, the sheer thought of silencing us at all and not even giving us 1 extra hour a month is just quite sad and definitely shows us your priority is not your constituents, ultimately your patients. Unfortunately, I think you all have gotten it wrong with your opinion of what the community is representing. Yes, there are great positive feedback from your community, as we've seen over the last few months. And then yes, you do have negative feedback from your community the last few months. But your job is as a board member is to weigh in both of those options, both of those scenarios, and to work to strive to get this hospital better in the eyes of your community that you represent. Your constituents should always have a voice, and less is not best. Secondly, I'd like to bring up an interview that was done recently by Dr. Manny Gordillo with Zoe Chase of This American Life. Dr. Gordillo is the head of infectious diseases at this hospital, and he was asked about ivermectin in this interview. He was specifically asked when the public came here in November and December, pleading with the board to launch a third-party investigation, what his thoughts were. He said that those who came up in front of this board during those months were manipulators. He specifically stated that we were manipulating patients by stating the hospital should use ivermectin and cease the use of remdesivir. And I'd like to ask Dr. Gordillo, what does he think we have to gain? What do any of you guys think we have to gain by being here? We have nothing positive to gain except having our voices heard and question the people who set the policy and try to gain some closure. That's it. We all have better things to do than spend afternoons at these meetings being upset and trying to get you all to listen. I think that the negative connotation in Dr. Gordillo's interview states a lot about what happened in this hospital during COVID, and how if you didn't agree with Dr. Gordillo's opinion, he would just flag you off as some crazy manipulator or a person that doesn't deserve his attention. And unfortunately, it's very upsetting to hear. And I hope this hospital does not condone name calling by a very high up representative of this hospital. Overall, I have more to say, but I only have 3 minutes because you silenced me from 5 to 3. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paris. Last card I have is, again, Moncia Sharonos. And if there's anyone else in this room who'd like to speak, don't be bashful with it. We all speak regardless. Welcome. Could you just make sure you're speaking the mic? There you go. Take your time.
My name is
From Melbourne?
Snellville, Georgia.
Snellville. I've been.
The reason I'm here is because unfortunately last month, I had a medical emergency at the airport. I was transported here. I needed a blood transfusion. I have thalassemia, so I needed a blood transfusion. And I want to thank the hospital, number one, because usually if I need a blood transfusion, you can't find blood. Because I have a lot of antibodies, but I need blood transfusions and things of that nature. So I want to thank the hospital, number one, for that immediate treatment. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse shortly after my stay. I addressed the patient advocate and I received a letter from risk management. It was not adequate. To be perfectly honest, it seemed like they were trying to blame me and absolve you guys of any, thing that you may feel, any litigation or anything that you may feel may be included. I was hurt at the hospital. I was physically hurt while I was here. And the doctor, to make a long story short, I feel like I was a victim of racial bias by the hospital. To be very fair, when I got hurt, unfortunately, a nurse was performing a test. Just because I mentioned, I woke up with a little shoulder pain, and she performed a test, and it actually caused it to, inflame or whatever. It was immediate. There was witnesses. The doctor came in, and I felt very dismissed. I was in very obvious pain. I was crying, and I was told, well, this isn't what you came in here for. This isn't what you came in for. So my question is, okay, if I come in for a blood transfusion, I get a broken leg, I would assume you would treat my broken leg. So I was very disturbed by the fact that I was shooed away, and then no tests were ordered until I complained, and I said, I'm in a lot of pain. The fact that the doctor left the room with no treatment plan for my pain, no treatment plan for my issue, just left the room, did not sit well with me, and it still doesn't sit well with me too. I didn't call the doctor a racist, because that was something that was addressed. I did not call her racist, but I'm very clear, she's not compassionate. And at the very least, she's not compassionate. Let me rephrase that, she's either not compassionate, she's biased, or she's incompetent. That's my issue. So I know my time is up.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead with your,
Okay, she left the room without any treatment plan, and until I cried and called the patient advocate, did anything get done? There was finally an MRI order. If you think I have shoulder pain, she offered me an X-ray, and then when she offered the X-ray, she immediately said, well, it only shows fractures. Okay, well, we know I don't have a shoulder fracture, so if no other treatment plan, no other diagnostics, no other anything was asked for, and I was honestly flabbergasted, because I was like, I wouldn't be sitting in pain. And I'm going to say the same thing I said to her. If I was a 50-year-old white woman, this treatment plan would have been a lot different. The expectations would have been a lot different. And I'm being very serious. I said the doctor didn't look at me like a 50-year-old mother, a 50-year-old white mother. She looked at me as a black woman. And I felt so disrespected. I felt so disrespected and so disarmed. And to feel like you have to fight for health, for basic health privileges. I had to mention that my niece is a doctor before I got any movement. I had to say, hey, my niece is an OBGYN that practices here. This is what I'm saying. No movement was done until that was said, and I shouldn't have told. It's very hurtful and disrespectful. And all I'm saying is if there was a treatment plan in place, if she would have offered anything other than this, I wouldn't have flown from Georgia to be here today. I'm here. No one's compensating me for this. I'm here on my own time.
Yeah.
I'm here on my own time.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us. I may ask Dr. Fiorini if you think that's for us. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for coming and sharing that with us. I know it was very hard. I apologize the way you felt. Good. Yeah, can I make sure we have the spelling of your name right? A matter of fact, why not? Yeah, if you'll visit with Carol. Thank you so much. All right, does anybody else want to speak? And do not want to be accused of staying from public comment. Hearing none, we'll close the public comments. Board comments, anything that you've heard today, or anything that you would like to discuss? Victor?
Just in response.
Could you use the microphone?
Just in response to one of the comments, perhaps we could consider at a future meeting, in the event, like, let's say, I'm just gonna throw out a number of 10, but in the event that we have less than, let's say, 10 speakers or some number that we agreed on by the board, maybe we can revert back to the 5 minutes instead of the 3. It's very certainly reasonable. We had huge amounts, but 5 is not, it's not a bad number. We have very few.
We'll take that under advisement and we'll take that. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. We'll take that. Good idea. Thank y'all for being here. Hearing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.